Hi, I'm Jami.
And I'm Hugo.
Welcome to No Particular Place to Go, where two middle-aged guys on opposite sides of the Atlantic talk rubbish about cars, car culture, ownership, track days, modifications, and pretty much anything else related to cars. We're not professionals, as you'll shortly hear, but a big part of our lives revolve around all things with four wheels. Thanks for joining us. I spent this whole week analyzing, and it's such a stupid exercise for reasons I'll get to in just a moment, but I spent this whole week analyzing both like rational and irrational reasons to buy either a V8 Vantage or a Huracan. And what I've convinced myself is this could be a total lie. What I've convinced myself of is I'll be in a financial position to afford either by the end of the year. Ideally both, but that there's no way in hell that's happening. But I think so the rational reasons are they're both going up in value, actually. So I mentioned probably a number of months ago, my fear was that the Temerario would be a flop and the Huracan would then go up in value. Yeah. Well, it's not even easy early read. It seems that that's what's happening. The Temerario is not doing well. From a friend in the know who is he's not only in the business, but also an extensive supercar owner himself. He was saying yesterday that Temerarios are already being offered under MSRP in the US.
What? But yeah. Surely there can't be many of them that have even been sold in the US yet.
I can't imagine so. Like, I haven't looked up sales figures if they're even available. And again, being super transparent, I'm probably not in the right circles to even know people who would be getting deliveries. But he has said himself, he's like, I've already been offered them under MSRP.
Oh, wow. So is the Temerario going to be a bit of a loose then?
I think it is. I think it's interesting because I would have said a few months ago, I was like, oh, very Revuelto. But the Revuelto, again, no data backing this up, but Revuelto almost immediately was offered under MSRP and not doing that well. But what I've also seen in the press coverage a lot is this is a very usable car. It's way more usable than the Aventador was. Right. Nonetheless, I don't know if that's really had an impact on Revuelto values. Aventador values absolutely have gone up. And now what we're seeing in the early Huracans is their values are coming up. Over the past 6 months, they've definitely crept up. So for me, a man who's not made of money, that's a negative. But it's also like the other side of that is it's also a good argument to get one because it's like, well, you're not going to lose money on this car.
It's sort of an investment then, right? And ultimately, if depreciation is going to be one of your primary costs, if at least, maybe it's a lot of money to get in, but if you can get out for the same or maybe even slightly more, then like it's kind of a wash in the end, right?
Yeah. I think that's a strong argument to be made for, hey, it's not depreciating end over end. So if you decide a year from now, 2 years from now that you don't want it anymore, or you didn't click with it, or you hate it, or other financial considerations are overriding keeping this, then you're not going, well, I just flushed money down the toilet. Now, however, the reality is like you've got taxes, you've got insurance, you've got gas, and I think maintenance will help maintain its value. But those first three are kind of money down the toilet. They're gone. So, and then the V8 Vantage is pretty much the same story, but at a much smaller scale, obviously. Like getting into one, you're looking at, I don't know, between 40 and 60. So magnitude's smaller financial commitment. The main analysis I've been doing though is which one will I enjoy more? And enjoyment means two things. One, which one will drive me less crazy with maintenance and parts and blah, 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 blah. And I think the answer to that one's pretty clear. It's the Lamborghini. But the other flip side is of enjoyment is, are you actually going to use it? Which one are you going to use more? And how will you use it? And so that's kind of a harder one to answer. So I've been trying to analyze that in my head as well. But I have time. Clearly, the negative is the values are going up over the next 6 months. The positives are that strengthens the argument, the rational argument for getting either one.
Yeah. And I think you're right, by the way, to like try and and I know that I do this in thinking about cars as well, is that you see something and you go, oh, I'm excited, I want that. And you kind of have like the heart goes first.
Yeah.
And then like to actually then wind back and go, okay, what are my use cases? Like, when am I actually going to get in that vehicle? Where am I going to be going? Where am I going to park it? Who else is going to be in there? Like all of that kind of stuff. Like, and then trying to work back from there and actually think about, well, what journeys do I do and how often do I do them? And what are the needs for those journeys? And therefore, what is the better fit, right? Like, that's definitely the rational way to do it. I mean, one of my colleagues, I think I might have said this to you, like she was shopping for a new car and she literally like built this whole like weighted scorecard model and then wound up deciding that she needed a Toyota Tundra. And I was sort of like, well, okay, I guess. Sure. I don't know quite how you get there. But yeah, I mean, I think, like, as you said, like people talk about the same thing with their clothes, right? Is it's like, okay, you could spend a lot of money on, you know, a garment, but it's cost per wear, right? So actually, if it's like, say, a jacket, maybe you spend $1,000 on some like, you know, down goose jacket or whatever. But if you live in New York and you're going to wear it every day for the winter, which is half of the year, for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years or something, like pretty soon, like it's, you know, it's costing you pennies each time that you putting it on, right? Versus something you go, oh, I get it on the sale rail and it seems cheap, but actually maybe I'll wear it once or I never even wear it and it just sits there in the closet. And then that has, so I don't know if this is helping you at all.
No, it is. It's well, you and I have also been talking about clothes lately, and I've kind of said, hey, like, you know, some of my stuff is getting worn out, which I think was well bought, but it's just like the cost per use. There's some stuff that I probably wear it too often, but it's like, okay, I'm wearing these things out, like time to buy some other stuff. But you have to do that rationalization of, I go in and I go, oh my gosh, you know, this amazingly manufactured, super durable, heavy wool jacket. Well, I live in California, so I'll go wear it like 4 or 5 times a year. Even if it's 90% off, it's like, and it ends up being $500. Like that's a lot of money per wear. Whereas it's like, oh, there's this like much lighter sweatshirt that's easy to put on, take off. You just throw it in the wash, nothing special. I can wear that several times a week. And actually, in fact, that is my problem, is I have a couple things that I like to wear over and over and over, and I'm wearing them out. So it's the same. It's actually super helpful, because that's exactly the same analysis with the car. The other same thing that I do is with clothes. I tend to buy the same thing over and over with slight variations. So if you go in my closet, I call them like jackety or jacket-like things, and I have so many items of
jacket clothes adjacent.
Yes, exactly. It's like this falls into like heavy shirts that are kind of jackets, true jackets, heavier jackets, sweatshirts of all variety, pull on, pull over, hooded, zip up. My go-to is a zip up hooded sweatshirt. That's kind of, I could live in those alone. But I have so many of the same type of clothing over and over and over. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people do. And part of that, in a way, is actually what that's saying is that you have found what you like, you have found what suits you, you have found sort of what makes you feel like you.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I'm, you know, I would also advocate for, you know, if you know exactly like your perfect t-shirt, go out and buy 5, go out and buy 10. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's the one that you're going to want to pull that on every single day, then who's to say that needs to be some rule that you have to have variety or whatever? I mean, it's like, if you find what works for you, like, think about Steve Jobs, right? Like, he had his Issey Miyake, like, black mock neck thing, his Levi's and his New Balance, and that's all he ever wore. And I think that's like one end of the spectrum, right? Where you go, like, and for me, I get why some people, they like that uniform, and his whole thing was about like not wasting time thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it's kind of like saying, okay, I could just have Huel or like Soylent or whatever, because then I don't have to think about it. And then you're like, yeah, but you're also missing out on like all of life's riches.
Yes. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so, I have to wonder, you know, taking that to cars, it's like, well, clearly I know what I like. I have 2 of the same car.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, I have a sports car. I have one current sports car that outside of track days, I don't drive that often, or unless one car is in for service. which reminds me, I need to get it out this weekend a little bit. So, and that's a much bigger financial commitment for a car. So I worry about like, are you just doubling up on the same thing? But the good news is, unlike clothes, like cars don't, especially when you're buying used, which I almost exclusively do, cars you can resell and go, I'm not using this.
Yeah.
Clothes, you could do the same thing. But if you're buying new, you're going to take a big financial hit.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And I think, again, with clothes, like if you buy wisely, if you're buying brands that are desirable, like Stone Island, for example, there's always going to be a secondhand market for that as well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Versus like, a lot of like you go to Uniqlo and you fill your basket and it's like, yeah, great. This is just going in the dumpster at some point, or Goodwill, best place. And again, a bit like cars, right? Like I think there are some, and this is something I wanted to chat with you a little bit about, because I went on Monday, we had a public holiday in the UK, like I think you did as well. And then there's like sort of car supermarket about an hour away from here. And they specialize in like Japanese imports. So I think there's some rule that like if they're over 10 years old, like, the taxes and stuff. And so they have a ton of stuff from sort of like VW ups all the way to like sort of Cayennes and Panameras and whatever. But they're all in like really good condition because of like, I guess and the way they explained it to me is like, firstly, there's this sort of philosophical thing that like people in Japan sort of like care more about their cars and look after them more. And then the sort of like the regulatory stuff is a lot more stringent. So you have like much more kind of like regular and kind of deeper kind of, service requirements for them. And so like you get, like I sat in a Panamera that was like a 2009 or something. And it was like, if you'd told me it was 2 years old, I would have believed you, just like it was immaculate. But I think there is that thing of like, and I was sort of reflecting on that of like, well, isn't that interesting? Because you kind of realize like anything else, like a 10-year-old car usually in the UK is like done. Like, it is like, it's just been trashed. Like people don't care about it. And it's a bit like that sort of clothes thing. It's like even cars, despite how expensive they are, kind of become a bit disposable. People are like, I'm going to have this for 3 years or whatever, and then I'm getting rid of it. And as long as whatever, like I'm not going to sort of care more about it than I really have to. And it's something that we've talked about, like extending to sort of mechanical sympathy as well, of right, like am I going to get in the car and like, I don't know, let it warm up for even 30 seconds before I put my foot on the floor sort of thing, or do I just go, well, I don't give a shit because by the time something goes wrong, that's someone else's problem. There's
there's so much that came to my mind as you were talking about that. So yesterday I was talking to same friend we were talking about Temerario, and he has a beautiful 1987 Buick Grand National. And it pulled at my heartstrings a little bit because my high school car was a 1986 Oldsmobile. So another GM product, same era. Obviously very different in terms of performance, but the interior, like a lot of the switchgear and the fonts and everything are the same. I was like, wow. But
those Grand Nationals, that's like the sort of triple black one with the kind of like the kind of hot rod engine. Yeah. Those are cool. That's
right. Yeah. Really, like, become really popular recently because a GNX, which is a hotted up Grand National, was featured in Kendrick's Super Bowl commercial, and then his album featured the GNX as well. But the Grand National is almost indistinguishable from the outside between the two. But we were looking at it and I was like, man, this is a 1987 car. So this car is that's 40 years old, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't think most cars, 2026 model cars, are going to look that good in 40 years. In was it 2066? They will not look as good as this Grand National does today.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a change. And I think companies were like, hey, we don't need to build them as nice because they don't need to last as long and we can make more margin by spending less. Like, does that suck for consumers? Yeah. But as we talked about, like what consumers enthusiasts want isn't necessarily aligned with what companies want.
Yeah, totally. And I think definitely you look back and like, I don't know, maybe like late 80s is kind of like the kind of zenith, or maybe like the end of those like engineering-led car brands, right? Like you think about Mercedes of that period, like those SLs, those like E-Class wagons, W124s, like those things were built by the engineers, right? Like, and it was almost like you kind of get the sense of like the checkbook is blank, build the best car you can for that purpose. And kind of that's what they did.
Yes.
And then in not very many years, then all of a sudden it's like, even with the Mercedes example, it's like you've got Daimler Chrysler and all the straight sixes go to V6s and it's all the weird swoopy styling and all that kind of stuff. And you just go, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, there's so many brands that are built on like, you buy this once and you buy it for life. Like, they're serviceable. They're not designed to be thrown away. They're designed to last you a lifetime. And you find that in watches, you find that in tools, you find that in clothing. Yeah. And it's those brands are, I guess their market is smaller because they inevitably cost more. But I think for me, I mean, I truly believe in the buy once, cry once saying. It's like, don't buy 8 cheap things when you can buy one thing once and it'll last forever. Great story that I've experienced in real life was, so my wife travels a lot, or used to travel quite a bit more for work. She would be gone every other week traveling. And she went through a series of, I'm not joking, like 4 or 5 cheap carry-on bags. And she'd go to TJ Maxx or Marshall's or something and buy a cheap carry-on bag for $200 or whatever. And after a while, I was like, gosh, this is like the 5th or 6th one you've bought. So now you spent like $800 on cheap carry-on bags. So hey, Toomey has an excellent reputation and they're nice and they have great features and they're well built. Let's just get one. Yes, it was like $600. And she was kind of apprehensive. We've had that bag now for over 10 years. It still looks brand new and nothing on it has broken. So over 10 years, I don't know how many cheap carry-on bags that is. It's probably like 30 or 40.
Yeah.
We've actually come out ahead and we haven't had to throw anything away in the landfill because it's cheap made garbage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you're kind of getting at there is like quality, right? And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is one of my.
We have talked about it, yeah.
And I still don't understand a lot of it. I think I've read it a few times, but like ultimately, like one of the big things that kind of was a real light bulb moment for me was this idea of like you can think about. I think they describe it as like romantic and classic, right? Yeah. So romantic is being like the kind of surface level, what things look like, kind of like the kind of. I don't know, like the glitz and glamour, if you will. And then the classic is kind of more like the underlying, like, the kind of the subsurface structure thing. And then like when those two things come together, like that is quality, right? Like something that is actually, that is so beautiful, but is also functional.
Yeah.
And, like, for example, you talk about like a really well-made piece of luggage, like also in the clothes world, like, there was that, I think I sent you a link to Blackbird Spy Plane, and they write some interesting stuff on there. But one of the things they're talking about recently is like what's in the fabric or the material versus what's on the fabric. So like actually having an understanding of like, I don't know, you're talking about a wool coat. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, where is that wool been like milled and spun, and what sheep do those come from? And like, can you trace all of that through? And like, how has that been treated and what chemicals and all of that kind of stuff? And focusing on that kind of piece of it rather than just like, oh, it says Balenciaga on the front and who knows where it's come from and it's just made in China sort of thing. Like really having that kind of view on the quality. The other thing that I think about as you sort of mentioned that, and again I think it pertains to cars, is like things that are really well made and that last over time, like they develop some character, right? Like patina. And like you see this definitely in like classic cars, like they find these barn finds and people deliberately preserve the ruined paintwork because that's like telling the story of the vehicle. And again, that's the kind of thing that you think like, well, a lot of modern cars, like, I don't know, made of plastics and made of God knows what, like they're not gonna get better as they age. They're not like I don't know, like a good pair of Red Wing boots or something like that. The more you wear them, they kind of like they mold to like they're just they're like cheap sneakers designed to be thrown away, and it's kind of a shame, really.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been challenging, and again, like going back, like we've been talking about clothes a lot in this one. This is the clothes episode, I think.
Cars and clothes.
Cars and clothes. No particular place to go except your local fine men's retailer. I think one of the challenges with clothes is, so growing up, you walk into a department store and whatever brands they had, right? You walk into JCPenney or Sears or Nordstrom's, what have you. And, some were high end, some were middle, some were low, but they had what they had. But now a lot of clothes shopping, as you've warned me and I'm now experiencing, is just better done online, because you can walk in, you can try and find somebody local to you that has stuff in stock, and you'll go, oh yeah, we carry XYZ brand, and you walk in, it's like, but that brand has 30 different SKUs. And in the store, because it's a physical store and it's a small area that's covering, they have 2, or they may not have your size or your color, etc. So but so when you go online, it's hard to tell, because there's so many new brands. It's hard to tell which ones are quality and which ones are garbage. There's a brand that I won't name, but one of the things that's kind of a trend is a lot of these internet brands are opening physical stores, which I think is awesome, because then I can go and actually see what the product is like. So there's a brand, they have a location in San Francisco, and I went in and I was like, oh man, these items feel like they're worth a quarter of what they're asking for. You know, they didn't feel that great. But without doing that, how you can't tell. No. You're just guessing. And so I mean, cars are kind of that way, in that depending on the brand, it may be hard to get your hands on one. It's like, well, I've only driven one. I'm making a purchase decision off of literally one. Yeah. But it makes it more challenging. It's like, well, it's great that there's way more brands, but how do I know which ones are actually valuable and actually worth what they're asking and will last the test of time, versus others that are garbage and they'll fall apart the first time you use them or wash them?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think that's, it's interesting you say that, because that's something that's been sort of in my mind a little bit, like, because I'm semi car shopping at the moment. And
when are you not semi car shopping?
Well, yeah.
I include myself in that. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. Well, because at some point, in theory, that Range Rover is getting sold. It still hasn't done, actually.
We have to talk about that, by the way.
Oh my God. Yeah. But anyway, like, so I go on Auto Trader, which is like the big kind of, like listings in the UK, and you see these things and you go, okay, yeah, but that's 300 miles away. And am I going to spend my weekend going to look at some like possibly ratty stuff? Like, I can't be bothered, right? And so then you kind of go, okay, well, now the only selection that is available to me is like relatively local, unless I really want to take a punt on something that I'm actually not going to see before it winds up on my driveway. And then, I don't know, like, it's one thing when it's a hoodie and it's maybe $100, and it's another thing if it's a secondhand car and it's, I don't know, 10, 20,000 pounds. And you're sort of like, do I want to take that risk? I don't think so. But equally, do I want to drive to Chesterfield on my day off? Not really either.
I'm totally with you. Like, you and other internet resources have been supplying, like, here's retailers to go check out. And I went to kind of this clothing row in Berkeley and hit up some stuff. And actually, it was really fun. I was like, man, I haven't actually like gone clothes shopping in forever. And there's some other neighborhoods going to hit up, but it's harder to do that with cars. And then when you're in a bigger metro area, you might have more selection, but in the Bay Area, prices are definitely higher than other locations. Yes. So apologies for the GT3 RS in the background. My neighbor has just fired his up.
Oh no, I couldn't hear it.
Oh yeah, it's he's a good model because he actually drives his cars, and I'm like, Whereas for me, Saturday morning rolls around, I'm like, I'm too lazy to get off the couch today. Maybe I shouldn't have any cars.
I feel like the more you've spent on it, the more you have to drive it, because then you have to get the value out. Like, I remember reading some article years ago about some like photographer from like Life magazine, and like I want to say the 50s or the 60s, that had a gull-wing Mercedes. And I think in theory was like based in Paris, but like used that car for work and drove all over Europe and put hundreds of thousands of kilometers on it in a gull-wing. And you're just like, but of course, like if you had a car like that, why would you not want to drive that every single day and take that every trip and go everywhere with it?
Good for them. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I sometimes think, like, if I was to remove all other constraints, I would love to have something like, I don't know, for example, a 911 Turbo. And I'm just going to be like, that is going to be my daily. I'm going to aim to put at least 20,000 miles on that a year, right? I'm going to take that on every road trip. I'm going to take that everywhere. I'm going to get it beaten up. And like, I'm not going to care if it gets scratched. I'm going to park it wherever I want to park it. Like, and I would maintain it. But like, to actually use it rather than, and again, we talked about this before, like the people who put them on the, in the climate controlled oxygen tank in the bubble on the pedestal. And you just think, but it's just like there's bits of metal in there that are supposed to be moving.
They're supposed to move. There's lubrication. It's not a static model. It's not just so you can post about your deviated stitching color choices and PTS color on Instagram. Like, you could do that without actually buying the car, you don't have to do that. Well, let's talk about cars that have been used. Let's get a Range Rover update. I am very curious to hear what's the latest with the L322.
There's not much to update. So I'm trying to think when we last talked. It's been a few weeks. Not much has happened.
I think last we talked, you had not spoken with the selling/maintaining dealer in quite a while. And you weren't sure if it had been sold off at auction, or if it was still sitting there, or if it had been repaired and someone's enjoying it.
That's where we are. So as you know me, Jeremy, my attachment style is that I'm highly avoidant. It's to do with my childhood. And so I find when things are a little bit uncomfortable for me, I would rather run and hide away from them. So they hadn't called me, I hadn't called them, and that was partly on me. Anyway, I finally got a hold of my guy over there, and he basically said, no, everything is fine. We've just been super, super busy, and we had a couple of other cars that we wanted to prep, and we wanted to take them all to the auction together. And so we've just not had a chance to do that. Like, really sorry we haven't updated you, whatever. Like, don't panic, sort of thing. Okay. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, good. And now that's probably 3 weeks ago. And, I've sort of been playing phone tag. I've been like, I get their receptionist, and I'm like, hey, just call in. Like, can I get an update? And by the way, like, because I'm also conscious that it's like, I'm generally during the week, sort of in their office hours, like I'm on calls. It's hard, it's hard for me to pick up my phone, and I put it on silent because otherwise it's buzzing the whole time, and I'm trying to remember what job I do and speak to people about it. Yeah. And I was like, what, can you get him to send me an email instead of calling? Because then we can like do this asynchronously. And so nothing, crickets again. So yeah, I need to update. But I did have a moment recently. I think I texted you about this. This is possible insanity, but I would like to hear your opinion of this. Like, so, I have been sort of out there going, oh, what would I replace it with, and what would I get instead, and and like, how much am I going to spend? And I don't yet know exactly what I'd get back for it. But they essentially quoted me $6,000 to fix the turbos and do all of that kind of stuff. And the thought occurred to me, what if I just took the hit? What if I just said, okay, I'll spend the $6,000, and by the way, like, while you've got it in bits, can you do this and this and this and this as well? Like, can you address some of the creaks? Can you actually make sure that, like, like that autocar thing of like the E46 BMW that Matt Pryor was doing, and they went through and like all the rubber bushings that had perished, they replaced them and stuff. I was like, maybe I asked them to do that, kind of like give it a proper refresh. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I end up paying $8 or $10,000 or something, but then I get back a L322 that is like tip top, right? And actually, if it really worked and it wasn't going to fail and it wasn't going to creak and do all the silly things that it was doing, would I rather have that back than whatever else?
So, I remember when you bought it, and I think the use cases that you had in mind when you bought it are still valid. Like, you were like, look, I don't want a garage queen. I don't want something that's going to win awards at car shows. Like, the reality of my commute is it's going to get beat up. It's going to get thrashed. Yeah. But this thing is high up enough. It's capable enough that it can handle, me letting oncoming traffic by in this tiny one lane road that I drive daily. And it's comfortable for longer drives when you do those. And it meets all your needs. I think that's still valid.
All of that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. I think all that's valid. I think the other thing, one of the other things that I would want to understand is, one, what would that cost? And then two, what would the value of that car be with that work done? Because I would want to understand, like, in my mind, the goal of putting that money into it would be to open up your options. If your options don't change, then it's not worth putting the money into. So what I mean by that is, like, does that open my options in terms of option one, I keep this car long term and it's more reliable longer term? Option 2 is now it has more value and I can sell it and at least get out what I put into it or close to it. Option 3, I give it to one of my children and maybe they take it. And that, or option 4, I put it up for storage and it's going to be okay when I come back. I think if more of those open up by putting the money into it, then it might be more worth it. However, it could be, all right, so total bill is going to be £11,000 to repair the turbos and then go through maybe not everything wrong with the car, but like the most pressing things. So let's just say it's 11 grand. So now the car at that state, is it worth 12 grand or is it worth 8 grand? And if like, depending on where that lands, and then also like, I know that your future location, like you had mentioned potentially moving for a couple of years at least, and then moving back. So what's going to happen with that? Like, and that's where like the value, it's like, hey, if I can go and flip this and sell it for 12, 13, 14 after putting 11, okay, cool. Or maybe even the dealership will be like, hey, I'll buy this back from you and we'll sell it again.
Yeah.
But if it's like, no, it's still worth 3 after putting 11 into it, then it's like, okay, this is just cut your losses.
Yeah. It's sort of sunk cost fallacy a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, I think that was my worry when I was initially thinking about it. Like, okay, if I just took the hit and paid that $6,000 to just fix the turbos, great, I get it back. The turbos are fixed. And that hasn't changed the fact that like the steering makes a weird creaking noise every time you turn it. And like, like there's been all these clogs in the suspension and there's just been like an ongoing like list of things wrong with it. I was taking it back every month for something else going on.
Yeah.
Through the time that I had it. And I think to put a load of wedge into it and then still find that it's like sort of irritating, I think that was initially why I was kind of like, oh, I don't want it back. I mean, what's changed? Like, in a way, because I don't really know what else I want. What else seems like kind of good value. And yet at the same time, it's like, I looked at this Jag XJ today and I didn't buy it, but I was close. and when I spoke to Kirsty about it, she's like, well, but what guarantee do you have that that's not going to blow up and that's not going to throw up all kinds of things? And I was like, absolutely not. Right. I don't know. It could be absolutely fine, or it could be a complete basket case, like no clue. And anything that's like 15 years old with 100 and something thousand miles on it, like you have to assume some parts of it are going to go wrong, but you just don't know.
Yeah, and it's tough because on one hand, it's kind of like, well, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Totally. I think also the reality is with your Range Rover has been like, well, it is the devil I know, and it still has surprised the crap out of me all the time. So I guess one question that would make a big difference is, can you get the warranty on it again?
Wow. So that was originally part of the plan that I was talking to the dudes at the garage about, because it just, if you remember, it just like literally ticked out of warranty.
Yes,
and then
I do remember.
And then it launched its turbos like the next week. I mean, it was just poetic chef's kiss. You couldn't have written it better. And they were like, oh, well, maybe what we can do is like, because obviously then the warranty had lapsed. They were like, we can take it out and then we can just be quiet and not book in any work for a couple of months and then do it, sort of thing. But I think the guy that I was speaking to had made the mistake of calling the insurance company and asking enough questions to let them know that this was potentially a course of action. And so then it was then no longer a course of action.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, my gut is that, like, what I'm thinking in my head is weighing a couple things. So, like, those 4 options that I laid out of putting in the money versus, like, just getting rid of it, which is taking a while. It's not as easy as I think you would like it to be. Yeah, but exactly. Getting rid of it, not putting any more money into it, and taking whatever amount you get from auction and then maybe some additional cash and then buying something to replace it. Yeah, but the big complicating factor, of course, is your long-term plans, or I should say midterm plans of like, will you even be in England 6 months from now?
Yeah.
And if you are, like, or if you're not, then what do you do to fill the gap in the meantime?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And that's also the kind of tricky part, because you're like, well, I'm not going to take out a lease. I'm not going to do any of these things. Like at the moment, I'm in this kind of like long-term rental, but it's quite expensive to have a Kia Sportage on the driveway that, like, I mean, it's a brand new car. It had 100 and something miles on it when I got it. But I mean,
yeah, what does that cost you?
It's £550 a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's probably, I imagine if I went into a Kia dealer and I wanted to lease one, I'd put some down and I'd probably be paying roughly that for it.
Yeah.
But then I'd still be driving around in a Kia.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean,
to your point, one thought, like, and you mentioned it as well, like, is there actually an ROI in sort of like, improving 322?
yeah.
If you go online and you look, like, there are some that are knocking around like a similar age and spec of mine for probably with, admittedly in better condition and probably with better provenance and stuff for like, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 grand. You go, yeah, because I think they're starting to be seen as sort of classics.
Okay. So, that would change the analysis quite a bit. Do you think that it would be viewed by the market as a positive or negative if you said, hey, listing this brand new turbos and all new suspension bushings, I have the bills and the paperwork showing 11, 12,000 in work done recently. That would be a selling point or a detractor?
I think that would be seen as being valuable because I think everybody knows that they're unreliable.
Yeah.
And like and those ones famously so, particularly for their turbos. I mean, I think Clarkson has talked about how he did the turbos on his, and it's like, yeah, but $6,000. It's like, you'll find that down the back of the sofa, right? Like that's a whole 5 minutes worth of one episode of Amazon's latest project with it. So,
I mean, I think that right there might be the clincher. Is like, okay, the values on this are on the rise and they're strong. It'd be one thing if it was like, oh yeah, good condition ones are floating around 13. It's like, okay, it's kind of a wash. But if good condition ones are floating in mid 20s, poorer condition ones are like high teens, I think you're in a good position to invest the money. And if it's a selling point, and it makes sense, like I'm a buyer, I'm looking at this and going, oh, it's actually had a lot of attention put into it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's going to be trouble free, but I know that the turbos and the suspension, for example, are not going to give me trouble. And those are big jobs, like the suspension, especially like suspension bushings. That's a lot of labor. Yeah. I think that's a pretty strong argument to put the money into it, use it, and then I think you're boosting its value.
Okay, interesting.
But I would just hold on to those records, of course, and say, it was done by a respected blah, blah, blah shop, and here are the records, and, here are images of them. They're available. And I think that gives the potential future buyer more assurance. And I think that's actually going to have a return on the money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. And it's something also I've been noticing, and I'm curious to your thoughts on this, because I think probably the answer for you is like some cars yes and some cars no. But I've now been without it for 3 months or something, maybe longer than that, maybe getting on for 4 months. And there are definitely occasions where I really quite miss it. Yeah. And I'm sort of like, oh, I wish it was sat there on the driveway. I wish I was taking that for this journey. There are other times where I'm like, I don't miss it at all. And I'm just like, it was unreliable. It was expensive to run. It was creaky and bobbly and all of these sort of things. And so I do feel sort of quite ambivalent. Like if it showed up tomorrow on the driveway and everything was tickety-boo, I'd be pleased to see it. But to know what it would take to get it there, also, it's like, I feel a little bit... And I think we've talked about, like, maybe some of the vehicles that you've had even recently, I feel like you've not been that sad to say goodbye to, and maybe now that you don't have them anymore, you're not thinking about them, and others probably more so.
Yeah, I don't miss the Lexus ISF at all. And I think it actually has taught me a lesson to not get into cars just because of the motor. I've actually done that several times now. It's like my CTS-V, as much as people praise that vehicle, like, it was really about the power. That's really all I had. I didn't think it was a great handling car. The interior quality was garbage. The features were okay. My NSX, I don't miss it one bit at all. Which it surprises me, but I think it's just having it for that long a time. It's like, okay, you had a really long time and you did everything you wanted to and move on.
Yeah.
my 3 Series wagons, I kind of miss a little bit, but I think the Alfa Romeos like cover most of what they did and better. That was one of those things where I remember when I first got it, I was like, oh, I had this realization that not everything has to be a Miata. True, but there's like, can they at least handle a little bit better than they do? And they just, I think I really looked at those with rose-colored glasses, and I think frankly E39s in general. But yeah, I don't miss those cars. Not to say that I wouldn't mind, like, again, with limitless space and money, like I wouldn't mind still having them, but it'd be like a big Hot Wheels just to look at. I wouldn't go I can't wait to drive the E39 wagon. It's like, no, I don't see myself ever saying that.
Yeah, fair. I just had a thought. Can I introduce a screeching change in subject?
Of course, let's do it.
Where do you stand on putting a surfboard on the top of your car if you don't surf, just because you think it looks cool?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
Ben, hear me out though, because is that not a bit like having an SUV if you live in a city? If you drive a G-Wagon and you live in a built-up area, you may as well have a surfboard on the top of your car and not surf.
Well, but here's the thing. So my friend Brandon recently sold his FL5 Civic Type R. Yeah. And I was like, no, why? And he had recently picked up a full-size truck, like his second or third one now. And he said, man, the truck is amazing because I don't care about bad pavement. I don't need to, I don't worry about it getting scratched up. Like, I don't worry about running over stuff. Not that you're like, looking for things to run over, but it's just like stress-free enjoyment. And I was like, okay, I could see that. Like, I've owned SUVs, spent a lot of time with SUVs. Like, I think that is one of the positives. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking this in the 90s where SUVs were really starting to pick up, and especially in urban areas. And I think beyond an image, there is some actual utility there. Like, especially if you live in a city where it's like there's always construction, there's massive potholes. I mean, you and I have experienced the like bending wheels and popping tires on a low slung sports car or a slammed wagon, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And especially if you're somewhere where like the driveways in and out of gas stations or in and out of parking lots are really steep, it's like you don't care about that in a truck or SUV. You're just go. Yes, there's compromises handling, but I can see that point more. Whereas like the surfboard is like, that's pure window dressing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely is. But I was thinking about it because it's like, I mean, firstly, kind of like the idea of doing that. I've thought about it more than once. I mean, I think you're right. Maybe it's not the right analogy, because I think like you're definitely right that there is like a use case for like actually a lot of sort of on-road work winds up being somewhat off-roady nowadays. Yeah. But I do also think there's a lot of, I don't know, how about this one? Like a diffuser on some like, on like a Porsche Panamera or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like that does not need a diffuser.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I do think it's a fair criticism to say just because an OEM put it on there doesn't mean it's not utter bullshit. And I would agree, especially when you look at some of these quote unquote diffusers. I'm like, that's not a functional diffuser. That's just aesthetics.
Yeah. And like the fake tailpipes and stuff like that they do. Matt, what's his name, always does with this stick of truth.
The stick of truth, Matt Watson.
Yeah. Have you not seen that?
Oh, I have.
Really
I love
annoyed
it.
with like Audis because of that. Yeah.
Yes, he'll always just pick up a random stick and like start whacking around the bumper. And he does his weird like hand motions when he's looking at stuff in the interior. He's always waving around. He's hilarious. Yeah. He does.
It's like the thing with his like on the top of his head.
My headroom. He's done so many reviews that he's just like almost robotic. He's like, this is for headroom. This is what I'm looking.
He's like a bot already. Yeah.
He's. Now, you have hung out with Matt Watson. You actually went to college with Matt Watson, right? You guys are super tight friends.
I once saw him in an airport.
Yep, that's what I mean. Yep, exactly.
It's basically the same. And, last weekend? Drove past
last weekend, yes.
Johnny Smith and his Nissan Cedric, Johnny Cow.
See, you're hanging out with all of these car
Passed them on the
celebs,
A1M. Yeah,
all
I know,
these car
amazing.
perverts.
So just to close on that point, if I just bought a surfboard just for the vibes and put it on the top of my car, we'd still be friends though, right?
We'd still be friends, and we could
Okay.
even continue to do this podcast. You know what? I would say do what makes you happy, man. Do what makes you
Okay.
happy. Do what makes you happy.
And depending on the car, I do think legitimately it could be quite cool.
I think
For
so.
example, surfboard on the top of a Jag XJ.
A modern XJ, that'd be interesting. I think that'd be quite a lifestyle statement.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, I'm a barrister who's cool kind of thing.
Okay, tell me about the XJ more though. So like V6, short wheelbase, V8?
V6 diesel.
Okay.
Short wheelbase, which is like, I mean, you've sat in them, right? When I had the seat how I wanted it as a driver, I could get behind myself, but only just.
Okay.
So it sounds a bit weird when I say I could get behind myself.
That's a different type of podcast.
But yeah, this is a whole other podcast one with more red leather in it. And I mean, it was like, I don't know, I had 120,000 miles on it, something like 2014. Okay. But like a big raft of like, you know, receipts and full service history and stuff. The couple concerns was one, it smelled bad.
Oh.
And I don't know if that was just because it had been sitting for a while and it was a bit sort of musty, but it was like a bit like it really needed a full valet and a con bomb kind of thing, you know?
What is with stinky cars in the UK?
Yeah, it was like that Fiesta as well. It was just BO that I sat in and I was like, this has been some like teenager ragging it on every single roundabout and like perspiring freely from their energy drinks. It's like, I don't want that lifestyle.
Gross.
Yeah, it was a bit stinky. And then on the front passenger side, the guy was like, oh, there's just a little bit of paint damage there. And it was all, you know, the bumper, the whole massive bumper, and it was all a bit sort of like wrinkled and stuff. And I was like, looks like it's maybe had a little bit of a prang there and then sprung back out. But actually, without pulling that off and knowing what's underneath it, you can't actually, like, was that bad? I don't know.
Okay.
All I can say is that I drove it, and it was a nice sunny day here today, and it had the full panoramic roof, and I opened that and put all the windows down, and you can get quite low in them, and I was cruising around, and I felt quite cool.
Nice. Okay. Now, how would it? I don't think it would survive well on your local roads, right?
Well, no. Probably. I mean, it did ride nicely, but it did have the big wheels on it.
Okay.
But I think I was kind of telling myself that because it was only $5,500, that like, at least if you're going to kind of scrape it through hedges and whatever, so what? Doesn't really matter. Again, it's like, you know, it's not going to be a garage queen. But I got a little bit excited about it, in fact.
I mean, it would be interesting to do what I will going forward refer to as Hugo spec it. So give it a nice lift and some knobbly tires and maybe
yeah. I think that a Dakar XJ needs to be done. I think that would be cool.
XJ Sterato.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And what's nice is they're quite rare. I think the shape has aged well. I think there's still like a handsome car on the road.
Oh, I think they look really good.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing is that I sat in it and like having owned a JLR product from 2011, getting in a JLR product from 2013, you're like, oh, okay, this is all the stuff that's going to go wrong then, right? Like
you could pre-label it. You're like, well, the AC will stop.
It's like, okay, the pop-up gear selector is going to get stuck down. Yeah, okay, I get it.
You won't be able to move it.
yeah. And again, I'm trying to justify going like, well, it's only 2-wheel drive and not 4-wheel drive, so therefore there's less to go wrong. And so
that's not a good starting point. That's a very good starting point for sure. That's not where you want to begin.
So anyway, I was close to pulling the trigger on it, and I was convinced by my lady wife to A, spend the afternoon to think about it, B, speak to you first. But I called the guy back. I think they shut at like 4:30. I called at like 4 and they'd already sold it. So I guess I was like, okay, well, fine.
They had sold it already.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
So now I'm looking at other ones online, obviously.
I mean, that is really cheap. I don't get how in England and the UK you guys have these really cheap cars. We just don't have them. I was watching the Auto Alex YouTube channel, and they
Yeah.
recently they picked up a 4,500 pound Bentley Continental GT.
Mm.
Those cars don't exist in the US. Like, we don't get cars that cheap. They bought a 600-pound Alfa Romeo, and I'm just like, what is
Mm.
going on here?
I mean, in the olden days, like when you used to be able to get a lot more stuff for even less, right? Like if you had 500 quid, you had a choice of stuff to buy,
Wow.
genuinely. Yeah. But there's definitely some. I mean, it is interesting because I think some cars really, really hold their value, and others really, really don't. I mean,
Okay.
like you think about like there are not Range Rovers of the same age as that XJ for the same amount of money in the same condition, right? Even
Yeah,
though
that's true.
arguably we knew there was the same price and it's a lot of the same sort of product under there. There was the guy that had the XJ today. He had a Continental GTC in there. Don't know what it was on for. He had a what's the four-door one of that sort of age? Like it was like 2012 or something.
Oh, yeah. I actually just saw one like 2 days ago. I cannot remember the name of it.
15 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. W12, the whole thing. Had one Panamera for 10K, another Panamera for like 17K or something. And it's like, and this is the other thing I was going to say to you, like in this Japanese like import place, they had a couple of Panameras, and I went to look at them, and I was like, I kind of really want to like the idea of a Panamera, because I like Porsche, and I was like, I like, I'm not sure I really want an SUV again. Like I want to be able to sit low, and yet, but it's got 4 seats and it's got a decent trunk, and you can put a surfboard on the top of it, all of that kind of stuff. But it's just they're kind of hard to love,
Yeah, they're. I feel like Porsche as a brand is a bit cold.
Maybe.
I know it's such a stereotype to go like clinical, emotionless, blah. But when I have driven them, I've come away with incredibly competent, very solidly built, but doesn't make me go. It feels more like head versus heart.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I need some heart in there.
Some fizz.
Yeah, should we talk about what everyone in the automotive world is talking about this week? The Ferrari Luce.
The Luce.
You have rushed out and put down your deposit, is my understanding. What made you decide that was the car for you?
I have rushed out and got an old Jag I-Pace and put some vinyl on it and a Ferrari badge, and no one will know the difference.
I think the comparisons to the I-Pace are an insult to the I-Pace, because I think that's a car. I think it looks way better.
So I think when I pinged you, what I said was, I like the steering wheel.
Yeah,
the steering wheel was cool.
Yeah,
I don't mind the wheels, and I like a dual round tail light.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
Beyond that, I struggle to have anything good to say about it, particularly because even like the tech specs are just like, like it.
Yeah,
it feels like you could pretty much get a Kia nowadays that has that sort of level of engineering, and it kind of just in a way speaks to, I think, what we've been talking about with like electrification. It's like it becomes a commodity, right? The motors are the same, the batteries are the same. Like, what are you going to do? Like, and in some sense, like, well, what you can do is the styling. Like, and that Kia, I don't know if you've got them over there, the new sort of like van thing. Like, you see a few of them over on the road over here, and they're pretty neat, right? Or even like an ID Buzz or something like that. You go, once I have this skateboard, I can design whatever the hell I want on it, and it can be cool.
Yeah.
And so we go, okay, well, you're not differentiating on styling. You're not differentiating on the engineering. The performance, the numbers are exactly like, I don't know. I struggle to see how that is a compelling proposition. Really, other than the fact that it's a Ferrari, and because it's a Ferrari, people will buy it.
I agree with all of that. I think if you had presented that car and said it was, this is the new, I don't know, Ford, or this is the new Oldsmobile, or almost anything else, I think, just speaking for myself, I would have gone, okay, like another EV SUV, don't really care. But okay, it looks fine. The fact that it has a Ferrari badge on it is where I get really confused, because I don't see much in that car that says Ferrari to me. Yes, the steering wheel I think is a little bit old school, which I really like. There's some like innovation in there with the paddle shifters, it sounds like. But the big hole for me is I'm trying to figure out what Ferrari is thinking. Maybe I'm giving them more credit than they're due, but part of me is going, there's some grand plan here that I just don't understand. Like, they're doing it to keep some government somewhere happy, or they're doing it because, I don't know, there's some other corporate strategy that I'm just not comprehending.
Yeah.
But on its surface, I'm scratching my head going, huh, I don't, and they themselves are like 93% of our current customers are not going to buy this car. So, okay, you want to expand a little bit, but it's still a Ferrari. And so people who have never bought and you're going to bring them into the brand, like, it has to at least look like a Ferrari. And I don't see anything in that looks like a Ferrari. So I just confused by it.
Yeah. It's interesting, that stat about like it's supposed to be all new customers, because I kind of, the way that I was understanding it is thinking like, I would guess, and I don't know this, but like the typical Ferrari customer, how many cars do they have in their garage, right? Like they have their Ferrari, they probably have a Rolls, maybe they have a a Maybach or something, like, and they probably have some form of EV, right? Like if they for, I don't know, when they're going into the city or whatever, or just sort of for funsies.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, what is that EV today? Like a Taycan maybe? Like, and so it's like, okay, how do I just, I'm going to bring out the Puro Sang so they can get rid of the Range Rover, or bring out the Luce so they can get rid of the Taycan. Like, like that's the only way I can kind of like rationalize it a little bit. That if I want to have a garage full to do all these different jobs that I need to do for my life, but I want them all to be Ferraris, well then, there's that. But then that kind of thinking also leads you down the path to creating, like, what was it? The Aston Martin Signet, like the rebadged Toyota IQ, right? Like the tender for the city, right? Because I have my DB9 or my whatever it is. And then when I pop into London, I want to be in a Toyota IQ that costs 3 times as much with a funny grill on it. And you're just like, really? Does that surely you just have a Toyota IQ then? Like,
one of the things that I haven't seen, and maybe I just haven't looked hard enough, is like, what are their sales targets for this? Like, are they trying to move thousands of these, or do they have very modest sales targets of, we're trying to sell 1,500 a year? I could see them selling 1,000 a year to people who are going, oh, it's the first full EV Ferrari, that's enough for me, looks be damned. There could be people like that. If they're trying to drive volume, I see that being an issue. But I think the biggest thing for me is Ferrari is probably the world's most valuable brand. Like, what do you want to call it? Like value per unit sold, but it's one of the most valuable brands in the world. Certainly the most valuable automotive brand in the world. And the big question I have is this helping their brand at all, or is it actually hurting it more than it's helping?
Well, that's a good one as well, because it's also that kind of like, there is no such thing as bad publicity, right? It's kind of like the Jaguar playbook. Like, you put something out, and even if everybody hates it, everybody's talking about it. Right. And so, like, does that translate into more sales for the Luce, or does that just mean that they shift more Puro Sangs and more whatever else? Maybe that's enough. Or maybe they just sell more t-shirts, right? Because to your point of like the brand, it's like, how many years ago did Harley Davidson start making more money from the merch than the bikes? Right. And like Ferrari must be there or thereabouts.
They have been for probably, I would even say, decades. They make more off merch than cars.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So but then it's like, wait, are you jeopardizing your t-shirt and hat sales for the Luce? Like, what are you doing? Who cares about the cars? You're not going to sell t-shirts off this. I find it confusing. So I don't know.
There's also, I wonder also whether there's some sort of like, I don't know, like, because I feel like we've talked a bit about this before as well. Like, I feel that there were eras in automotive design where there was a lot of elegance and beauty around. Like, I don't know, you think about the 60s, in sort of in Italy and in Britain, and it's like, you had an MGB, and you had like, you had Alphas, and you had these things that were elegant. And now we've come through this era of like just aggression and kind of like angry looking, like, scary looking kind of cars. And now we just seem to be getting into this world of like, just, I don't know, like bad proportions, bad detailing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, but some of it is all like, how do you kind of like, I just need to differentiate by being ugly somehow. Like, oh, I'm going to make a cool M3 wagon and I'm going to put weird beaver teeth on it just to make it stand out. Like, if you just left the grill alone,
Yeah.
it would have been great.
Yeah.
You didn't need to do that.
Well, like, I think a lot of the other cars in Ferrari's current lineup are just not that good looking to me. And I think a lot of people in the market are like, oh, the F80, the new Testarossa. I think a lot of people are looking at those going, not so great. And then the Luce design language doesn't fit with those at all. So it's almost like, if you guys wanted to launch a sub-brand, that almost would have been better. But yeah. Well, yeah, the Luce, we'll see what happens. It's interesting. Yeah, all I can say is I'm very curious to see what the next 12 to 24 months hold for that car. Yeah. I don't think it's like it's fatal. Like a lot of people were reporting like, oh, Ferrari's stock price actually went down like over 8% because of this, which is interesting. I don't think it's often that a product launch actually will drop that stock price when your other products are strong and doing well. Ferrari financially is doing fantastically well. So,
and I think to your point, like I get the impression like they just have a captive audience and a customer base who will just buy whatever it is that they put out. And like I'm sure they will sell enough Luces to make it be worth their while. It's just a bit of a shame sort of for the enthusiast to go like, what's the if there is some sort of trickle down of like a Ferrari is at the pinnacle and that's the halo, and then you see all these other sort of brands striving for that, you go, if that's really the best that anyone can do, what does that now mean for like, I don't know, BMW? What does that mean for like, you kind of come down the tree? It's like, does that mean we all get much more, boring, like bad cars now? Because if Ferrari can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah, it's also weird timing. So one of the things I had read was they wanted to introduce this car a year ago. I don't know if that's true or not, but they wanted to introduce it a year ago. Certainly, the EV market has changed, and you've seen a lot of Ferrari competitors kind of do this 180 or at least a hard left and go, and we're not going full EV like we said we were. We're investing more in hybrids. So for this car to come out now is already kind of interesting, and then for it to come out looking the way it does is really interesting. And you just, once again, I'm just scratching my head going, what are they doing over there? Like, what? Why? But okay.
I mean, you feel like if it had come out 5 years ago, it would have been impressive, and people would have kind of been into it and been like, oh, it looks futuristic and the specs are good and whatever. But you feel, I just get the sense like the market has moved past that now.
Yeah, I do think it would have had a better reception if somehow this came out 5 years ago. I think that's accurate. I think people would still like, I think that would have predated the Pure Sangue, but I think that's still, it would have been like, holy crap, this came out of the blue for Ferrari. But I do think the overall reception would have been better.
Do you know, I'm not really following F1 at the moment. Do you know how well Ferrari are doing in the F1 at the moment?
I also don't follow F1. I know we briefly talked about it, but I just, Yeah,
but isn't there that classic thing of like when Ferrari racing teams are doing well, then the road cars are shit, and when the road cars are good, then the F1 team does badly?
It could be. I don't know. I know that Ferrari is doing, I do know they're doing better with Lewis than they were in the previous few years, but I don't know where they are in the standings. I paid a little bit more attention when Lewis moved to Ferrari, but I have not really paid much attention since then.
I haven't done this for a while. I rather feel since it's all become a bit Netflixified, I've kind of lost interest a little bit. But it's just me being a contrarian.
Yeah, same here. I often wonder, I'm like, do you only not watch it because a lot more people do watch it and you just feel like you have to be counter? And maybe I'm just a jerk.
But this is also, but it's funny because this comes up in cars, right? Like I'm out there shopping and I'm like, I don't want something that I see on the road a lot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I want something on my driveway that seems rare. Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be super flashy or super whatever, but like I don't want it to be like so mainstream that it's like everybody's got one. And
it's funny you say that. Like
maybe that's dumb because it's like maybe some of the cars that are popular for a reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's very true. TJ Hunt, who's a YouTuber who I don't really follow that often, but 4 or 5 days ago he posted a video and he bought a V8 Vantage, and the first third of it was exactly that. He's like, oh my gosh, every body style of every BMW M car has been done over and over and over to death. And while I still like those cars, I want to do something different. So he picked up a V8 Vantage. And I was like, okay, I'll subscribe just because I want to see what he does with it. But I think there is something to that. It's like, it's a lot of money, right? And you don't want to see yourself everywhere you go, says the guy who owns a Miata, and you see them everywhere. But like, you know, that is one of those cases where it's like, it's just a damn good car. And like, if you just like a Miata and you want to be contrarian, fine. And I think there's journalists who do that. They're like, oh, well, it's not that great. Chris Harris is probably one, but it is damn good, especially for the money. So
yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that, because a couple of weeks ago I had a real like jonesing for a convertible, and I looked a bit at Miatas. But I think part of the thing, because I'm tall, like I'm always a bit nervous about like that thing where I'm kind of sitting on it, and like the windscreen is at like my nose rather than I'm kind of in it. Yeah. And I think that's that. Like, am I right in saying that like yours is a sort of 4th gen, right?
That's right.
The third gens were bigger than the 4th gens. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah. So the NC is roughly based on the same chassis and bones as the RX-8.
Okay.
Which some people hated, some people think it's a huge positive, but physically it's bigger.
Yeah.
Not massively so, but it is a bigger car. You know, the other convertible a couple friends have picked up for dirt cheap. Yeah, maybe I'm lying that those dirt cheap cars are out here. They both spent way less than 10 grand. Is a Z4.
Yeah, I saw one. I don't know whether I even sent it to you, but it was like, I think it was like the first generation Z4. It was like a $4,000 one. That like dealer that I sent you a couple of things from, like Heel and Toe out there.
Oh,
in, Suffolk. And it was like a nice, I think it was like dark blue on tan with like the nice multi-spokes on it.
Oh,
yes, only like I remember a base model, like 4-cylinder manual. But I was like, that would be a fun car for the summer, I think. Like those have aged well, like kind of peak Bangle era kind of.
Yeah. Did you go and check it out or no?
No, I didn't. It's just a bit of a schlep. and her indoors didn't like the look of it.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't mind those.
No, I have to admit,
even the newer ones, like the ones they did the hand shelter.
Oh yes,
which is basically a Supra underneath. Yeah, well, the Supra is basically that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see those often, but I did see one this week, and I was like, you know what? That's a good looking car. I actually think it looks better than the Supra, but I hated the first gen Z4 when it came out at first, because again, Bangle, the flame surfacing on the side, and it's grown on me. I'm like, because the Z3M has kind of a sweet spot for me, and then the Z4M is kind of a bargain.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose they were always up against Boxsters.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of people were always kind of like the Boxster was the sort of obvious choice. Or like, and I suppose like SLK 55 is sort of that era as well.
Yeah. The SLKs were always like the underdog.
It just always feels a bit hairdresser for me.
Yeah.
Or a bit desperate housewife.
Yeah, I felt like the SLK was always like, it tried, but it wasn't even close to the same level.
Yeah. And like a full-size SL, I love.
Yeah.
But also, they're just kind of dumb because like big and, it's not a sports car. It's not really all that spacious. Like, I'm sure they're expensive to run. They're expensive to buy. They're like, hard to buy and everything. And you go, it's just dumb for every use case. But I do quite like them.
One of the things I had down as a note is I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with the CLK 63. And I remember I was living in LA when the CLK 63 Black and the SL AMG Black both came out.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to see a couple of those on the road. And holy crap. I mean, the CLK in particular, for some reason, I've always really liked that car, both first and second gen. The CLK Black is a bit of I would say like bit under the radar, but if you actually look at the values, they've gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And then I went down a bit of a rabbit hole because I was just randomly looking at Auto Tempest, and I was like, oh, there's actually a CLK Black, a little bit longer, like higher mileage, like 80,000 miles, but I think it was listed for 90. And then there was a white one that was like 25,000 miles. It was twice as much. And I was like, whoa, that one might be a bit of a bargain. But I also started to remember that at the time and today, highly praised by quote unquote people in the know. I remember Jeremy Clarkson really loved the Black Series cars.
Yeah, I think he had one.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah,
Mark McCann has 2 of the CLK Blacks, one white, one black, if I remember correctly. And he's raved about them. He said, oh, most fun Mercedes ever made. Having never owned a Mercedes, I was like, I'd really like to know more about this. And then I talked to Fenton, who may be driving one soon, but the owners converted it to a manual. And just really intriguing car. Like the muscled up body is awesome. Jason Camisa, I'll send you the link. Jason Camisa has a fantastic video about them. Just really cool, brute, and maybe not necessarily cruisers, a little bit too brutish for that, but also not like, hey, scalpel canyon carvers.
Yeah.
So, interesting cars. Never driven one. Would love to. And, maybe on my one day to own.
Yeah.
But fascinating kind of side point.
Yeah. Well, and definitely to that point, because I suppose that was kind of like the precursor to like that generation of kind of C63 that I had, right?
Yes.
And I must admit, like I do kind of come back to this, like for a lot of my use cases, what I really want is a fast estate. Like I'd love a C63 or an E63 or a, I don't know, RS6 don't quite do it for me, and RS4s I think maybe like they're not quite, I don't know, also, but like I like the kind of hot rodding Mercedes thing.
Yeah,
I think like what really took me by surprise, like I loved that car and it ate through tires, like the amount of gas I put in it, the amount of oil it needed, like it was, it needed a lot of looking after. Like it was great to drive, and to your point as well, like it's not like a super, like it's not like a Miata or like a Lotus Exige or something like that. Like at least that car was much more of a like a, you were comfortable driving it every day, and then you put your foot down and you were like, whoa, this is something very special.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that mechanical sympathy or kind of like looking after it thing that we were talking about before. So you sort of have to be prepared to go, I do need to baby this a little bit, and I need to sort of budget for that as well, because I can use it every day.
Yeah.
But I need to look after it if I'm going to use it every day. Sort of thing.
And that's one of the things I worry about is not necessarily the cost, but parts availability. It's like, okay, some of these things on the CLK 63 Black are unique to that car, and you're not going to necessarily walk into the dealership and say, hey, can I just buy this? My understanding is Mercedes is pretty good about not discontinuing parts, but that doesn't mean that it's still going to be available, and you're not going to find that part on eBay from a wrecker. So that could be an interesting challenge. And having gone through some of that with the NSX already, I'm not eager to repeat that. But at the same time, that's also an increasing reality for more and more cars.
Yeah. Well, and that also sort of becomes like a, because I think certainly some old cars, like, I don't know, you think about like a Mini or like a Morris Minor or something like that. Those parts have always been so easy to come by. They've been so sort of cheap. And you think ultimately those will be the vehicles that stay on the road, right?
Yeah.
Because people are going to be able to keep them on the road.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like maybe, like a Lancia of a similar ilk, or even like, the sort of festival of the unexceptional, people just aren't going to hold on to those things, and that's it. They just go at some point because like we've said before, like things wear out on cars, and they just need to get replaced. And unless you're going to go and custom fabricate it, which unless you're a YouTuber who really does that.
Yeah,
maybe,
I know, like I've definitely talked about the praise of like, cottage industry and stuff, but and I still think that's fantastic. 3D printing, home CNC, laser cutting, blah, 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 all that stuff. I still think all that's fantastic. That doesn't necessarily mean for the average Joe or me that it's like, oh, I'll just whip up a new oil pump. No big deal. Or, the third gear went and I need some new synchros. Yes, conceivably I could have that made with a lot of time and investment. But I think like in practicality and budgets and time constraints, it's still difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not like all of this sort of, well, everyone's can have a 3D printer in their garage sort of thing. It's like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I have a 3D printer and I've made a handful of parts from it, but I'm not prepared to go and, oh, the steering rack is worn. I need to do XYZ. Like, and maybe that's just my own ignorance and not having put the time in yet, but we should probably wrap this one up. So this is episode 14, which is exciting. And we actually recorded in a reasonable time because 13 went out not too long ago. So as usual, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, concerns, feedback, constructive criticism, email us at info@npptg.org and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.